Victress FM, brought to you by Victress Entrepreneurs. Here's your host, single mum, entrepreneur and brain injury survivor, Michelle Williams.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victress FM, where every week I'll be introducing you to inspiring women who have gone after their dreams and refused to give up even in the face of extreme adversity. We'll be diving into her victories and her defeats and discovering the lessons that she's learnt along the way, all with the aim of inspiring you to step into your own unique power to create a business and life that you love. Today, I was so delighted to welcome Sigrun onto the podcast. Sigrun is on a mission to accelerate gender equality through female entrepreneurship. She is one of the leading business mentors for online female entrepreneurs in Europe, a TEDX speaker and host of the Sigrun Show Podcast. After climbing her way to the top of the corporate ladder as the CEO of a software company, Sigrun's fortune suddenly changed after she was fired from 2 jobs due to poor health. This was the adversity that led Sigrun to start her own online business, which she built to 7 figures within 4 years. Sigrun's motto is be inspired, think big and take action. And as you're about to discover, Sigrun is a woman who stays true to her words. I absolutely loved this interview with Sigrun and I know that you will too. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victress FM, where I'm really delighted today to introduce Sigrun onto Victress FM. Hello Sigrun, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, as you know, Victress FM is all about celebrating women's triumph over adversity, because I really want to inspire women that we all have the choice of how we respond to life's challenges and to decide if we want to be the victim or victress of our own lives. And I'm particularly interested in exploring how sometimes the adversity that we go through in life actually takes us onto our entrepreneurial journeys and actually shapes us into the people that we are today. And I know you've got a really inspiring story of triumph over adversity. And so I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your victory story with us today, please, Sigrun, and sort of how you got started in the online business world.
Sure. I think my idea of having my own business goes back to my childhood because my parents had their own business. So a seed was planted early on, but I had no idea what that business would be, when it would happen. And actually, it didn't look like it would ever happen at some point because I was very successful in the corporate world. I was a CEO of businesses up to 70 employees with 8-figure revenue. And I thought that would go on forever. And I would just have bigger and bigger businesses to run. And then I got into the situation where actually I didn't like the new owners of a company. I basically was a CEO of a company that got sold, and I was always following along as a CEO to keep the employees and keep the morale and make sure nothing would shake things up. And at some point I had a new board that wanted to interfere with things that I was doing. They didn't like my way of doing business, and basically I had myself fired. And that was great. I had like these 6 months of thinking about life and thought to myself, maybe this is time to start a business, but I was scared. And this is actually 10 years ago. But something happened. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar in London.
Oh, wow.
And I think there, I was suddenly in a room with lots of entrepreneurs. He seems to attract entrepreneurs, even if he doesn't say it directly with his Unleash the Power Within seminar. But there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, and I think another seed was planted that I could have a business like the other people that were in the room. But again, what was it? No idea. And I was scared. But I met my husband there, so that was a good thing.
Oh, wow.
So I had been single for 5 years, so this was wonderful. And we are now, have been together since that time, since February 2008.
Okay.
And I was in between jobs and met my husband, was totally in love and did the unusual thing as a career woman, feminist. I moved to Switzerland to follow the love of my life. And even though I said to myself, who does that? I did it. And then I found myself in Switzerland, and I had to kind of start from scratch. I had all this CEO experience and already 4 master's degrees in my pocket, and still it was quite hard for me to find a job. People don't like it in Switzerland when you have been doing various things in your life. They like people to be in a box and just stay in their box. Mm-hmm. And so I was unemployed for a while. This added another 6 months, basically. So for a whole year, I was without a job. I was financially okay. I had a good package when I left my previous job. But I found a company, small company, and I started to work for them. But it was a medical technology company, so a little bit away from my software and IT background. But then I started to get headaches on Fridays. And I was like, what is this? And I thought it was maybe me just, that I kind of started to maybe do fitness. Maybe I wasn't doing it much. So I started trying to go to a fitness studio, and the headaches didn't go away. And then I had headaches Thursday and Friday. And I remember this is November 2010. So I had been in my job for, almost 2 years. I had been in this job, and I just couldn't go to work. It was Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. And the headache started on Wednesdays now instead of Fridays. Mm-hmm. And I started to feel, the painkillers didn't help. And I just felt very strongly that this was more serious than a headache. I've had headaches throughout my life. My mother has migraine. And taking headache tablets, probably I've taken too many in my life, but this was different. This was definitely different. It was not migraine, but the headaches were just constant and pounding, and I felt like this is serious. And I told my employer that, I had to be at home, and I started to get pinching ear pain as well, and my shoulder hurt, like my neck hurt. So I started to kind of think, well, is this maybe from my job? And, but I wasn't sure. But I hadn't taken a good summer break the previous summer and not sat on my computer for many weeks. And when I came back to the office, it was just worse. So I thought, well, this is probably connected to my job. And I saw that my desk was probably too high and my chair too low. So I was lifting up my shoulder all the time to work on the computer, instead of having a good posture and being able to just, lay down with the shoulders easily. Yeah. And I hadn't noticed this. So this had been going on for 1.5 years, and I hadn't noticed. And then on top of that, my hobby is, I'm a serious hobby photographer. And I had been sitting in the evening at home, maybe at a better desk and a better chair, but I had been working on pictures. So it was probably making things worse that my hobby was also relating to sitting at the computer. Anyway, I got this horrible pain, and I realized this is more serious than just a headache. Like, this is impacting my whole body, and it's related to my job. And I go to the doctor, to my regular doctor here, and they're like, okay, I'll write a sick leave for 6 weeks. And I thought to myself, even then, I had this, hunch. You could call it insight or intuition that 6 weeks were not going to be enough. I knew that right away. And he sent me to some other doctors. And the thing is, I live a little bit outside Zurich in a rural area. Let's say not rural, but little villages. There's like 5,000-10,000 people in my village. And the thing is, my impression of the doctors, not the best doctors will have a practice here. The best doctors are in the city center, where all the people are. Yeah. And I was confirmed in this, like, they did not believe me. I think this is a problem many women have. Doctors do not believe us. And I think I've noticed this, this has been very much in the media in the last 2 years, that you need different type of medicine for women. And we need maybe even female doctors to believe us. And that's interesting in my story, because even though my employer wasn't so supportive, he was supportive initially. So he said, go to this woman in Zurich. She is ear doctor, or what do you call it? Throat.
Ear, nose, throat.
Yeah. So I go to her. I get an appointment like a month after I started to get sick. So I was still on sick leave. And she was the first female doctor. Interesting. Mm-hmm. And she said, there's nothing wrong with your ear, but there's something seriously wrong with your overall, like your neck, your tight muscles, your posture, and that's causing these headaches. And I'm not the right doctor for you. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to send you to a friend of mine. It might take you 3 months because he's one of the best in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. So, but she said, I'm going to write you on a sick leave for another 6 or 8 weeks.
Okay.
So, and then I wait for this appointment. I have to convince my local doctor. And actually I had to switch doctors. And I had to find a doctor that was a little bit more alternative. He was a bit weird. And I had to pay more health insurance to be able to have the choice of a doctor. And I did that. It was definitely worth it because now I had a doctor who believed me. But this was me after 3 months. I finally had a doctor who believed me. The woman had believed me, but she was a specialist. But I had a local doctor who believed me, who helped me through all the bureaucracy of, getting still, health benefits and everything paid for. I started to go to physiotherapy and some trigger point massage. And I was waiting for this appointment with this good doctor that should be able to help me. Meanwhile, there's suddenly, I am connected with a guy in the US through some startup things that I've been doing in the past. And we have a Skype call. This is totally random. Mm-hmm. This is now in January, like I'm 3 months into the sickness. I'm still sick and I know I should not go back to work.
Yeah.
And I had the call with this guy and he says, you have RSI.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow, because he's American, he's half Icelandic, but he's American. And he said, how are you? And I said, I'm not good. And you're not supposed to say that to Americans. You're supposed to say, I'm fine. And then I told him my whole story and he said, you have RSI. And I'm like, what is that? And I said, repetitive strain injury. And I immediately Googled it and it fitted so perfectly. Now that's accepted condition actually in the US and in the UK, I believe, but not in Switzerland and not in Iceland where I come from. So you have to call it something else when you go to the doctor. But I started to be able to help myself. I found websites, fantastic blog posts on stretching and basically you have to improve your posture. That's a big part of it. And you have to not do computer work. So I was totally right in my belief that this was serious and you could actually be invalid. You can become totally, unable to work if you don't take this seriously. So if anyone has like tingling in their hands or pain coming up in the, up the hand or in the neck or headaches or ear pain, and you have some feeling it could be related, please take it seriously.
Yeah.
So I was not on the computer for 7 months.
Right. Okay. And did you get the help? I mean, you said it's not recognized in Switzerland, but did they kind of confirm the diagnosis and give you the help that you needed to sort of try and deal with that?
Yeah, so finally I had this appointment with this super duper doctor. He did all kinds of tests and the results were like a huge report where it said nowhere repetitive strain injury, but the summary of it is repetitive strain injury. There was this thing about the posture and all kinds of other things, in my body that, the muscles were too tightened up and, there was a long list of things. He just couldn't use that phrase. But my local doctor agreed with me. Yeah, this is what he says. And he wanted to actually, because my condition was so serious, this is still 3 months in and I've started to do physiotherapy and daily walks, which is one of the suggestions. Another doctor that I went to suggested just do daily walks for an hour and they helped a lot. But it takes a long time because, of course, something like this hasn't happened overnight. Maybe it's taken years to come to a point. So you're not going to heal it in a week or 3 months.
Yeah.
But the daily walks, but nothing had started to help. And when I go to this doctor, I'm still in horrible pain after 3 months. He gives me this huge report and he says, I have to send you away to a clinic for at least 4 weeks. So basically, he wanted to send me to like a hospital where I could do physiotherapy multiple times a day, and someone would constantly see what I was doing and how I was doing it, instead of me just going 3 times a week for 30 minutes. I didn't like the idea, but the thing is, because the system takes time, it took at least 2 months until I got the letter from this clinic where I could go, like, hey, here's your invitation. You can come to us, whatever, in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I've been waiting another 2 months. So I'm 5 months in. It's April. I remember this was around my birthday. And getting very tired of no solutions and just waiting, and still Googling and constantly trying to look for some kind of a help. And somebody suggested kinesio tape. You know, the tape that you see the athletes with in the Olympics that are playing like tennis or some other type of sports, and they're like neon pink or some other funny color. Yeah. And they put this on my back, 2 rows on my back, around my neck area, out my shoulder. And I can swear, within a few hours, I started to feel some kind of relief. Now, the pain was not completely gone, but I feel, kinesio tape doesn't really help. That's the funny part. But it's like a micro massage on your body. You have to put it on correctly, and it kind of massages you when you move around. The thing is, I was doing all these things, daily walks, physiotherapy, trigger point therapy, and that nothing had moved on. But suddenly with the tape, that all helped. And I could finally go off the painkillers. I was taking 3 different painkillers. I had ruined my stomach. And suddenly things started to work out in about April timeframe. And meanwhile, my employer had fired me. Before he fired me, he stalked me online and offline.
Oh my goodness.
To see that I was really sick.
Yeah.
This was probably the first time in my life that I felt bullied, like really bullied. Like, I got a letter from a lawyer that on Flickr, I had posted an image from I did a group photo for my employer for free with my camera, with my lights. And that had been used for a Christmas card. And because Flickr is kind of community of photographers where you're trying to get comments from each other if you're doing well, it's not really for the general public, but it's a public picture, yes. No, I had to take that down.
Wow.
And there were some other pictures, like they were really kind of harassing me, and it made things worse. I was in a very vulnerable situation. Like I think I'm a pretty tough cookie as a businesswoman, but when you're sick and you're sick with something that is not really so explainable or accepted, you don't talk about it. I started to avoid friends and family even during this period. And then you get a letter from a lawyer. It really puts you, totally down.
Yeah, because you must have felt really victimized. So you were basically, they fired you from your job because of the time off that you needed to recover from your sickness. Is that what happened? Yeah. Basically, I think they gave me about 3 months and 1 day, and then they fired me. It was kind of exactly the time that they were like, okay, she's obviously going to utdränga, but they didn't fire me the first day. But first they were very sympathetic and helpful, helping me get an appointment with that doctor. Yeah. But then immediately after like 6 weeks in, I felt one guy from the office came here with flowers at my home. I was like, that's weird. And I even wondered, is there a microphone in the flowers? Yeah, but it was really, I'm this go-getter. I've always kind of, I had these jobs and I had, really done, I felt a great thing how I just got my CEO job in the first place. I just made a phone call and asked for it, and suddenly I'm this invulnerable position and I feel like this can't get worse, like legal letters, and I'm here sick. And yes, I was not visibly sick. That was the problem for them. I looked healthy. You can't see when someone has headaches or pain inside their body. You don't see that. No,
but
absolutely.
I was really hurt, and I didn't go more than 10 minutes to the computer per day for this time. And I was lying on the sofa, but I didn't waste my time because I'm conscious of the time. My it sounds like a burnout, But the thing is, my head was completely laser focused. So I was thinking, how can I use this time? So I signed up for lynda.com and I watched videos on how to use Photoshop and Lightroom. And so I was continuously learning as much as I could. But yeah, this was, and the interesting part, first I thought I'll go back at them. So I booked an appointment with one of the top lawyers in Zurich. I probably paid, I guess, £1,500 for a session and a suggestion of a letter to send back. And then there was something in me say, no, I'm not going to do that. So I went to my doctor and I said to my doctor, here's a letter my employer is sending to me. Can you write a short letter for me that this just is not helpful for my recovery and they could please back off? And he did, and I didn't hear from them after that.
Brilliant. But they still fired you from your job, so you were still having a job.
Yeah,
So-
they fired me from my job. But here's how the universe is interesting. The day before they fired me, I get a phone call. There are a few Icelanders that live in Switzerland, and we kind of know of each other, and we maybe meet. We used to have more meetups. We have a little bit less now, especially I travel a lot, so I don't meet them anymore. But I had showed up to a few meetups, and I got to know this guy in the software business, and he had a software company in Iceland. They were selling software also to Switzerland, to local schools. I get a phone call the day before I'm fired, and he's asking if I want to be the country manager for Switzerland.
Oh, wow.
But then I told him that I was sick, that I had RSI. I was being very honest. And he said, really? I have that too. Actually, he didn't react as quickly as I did. And he cannot type on the computer. He uses software, voice recognition software to type emails. So even when he's emailing a person from the same country, like Icelandic, he will write in English because the voice recognition software is just better in English.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And he said he'd had it for 7 years. And this kind of like, yeah, I was so right how serious it is. And I didn't want to be the one that cannot type on the computer anymore. But we hit it off well. And I said, okay, I'm sick. I'm trying to recover. I would love, and the next day I'm fired. That's so much synchronicity here. And so basically I contacted him after I'd been fired and said, hey, I'm available. But I'm sick. So he said, well, maybe you work as a contractor for us and see how much you can do. So when I finally started to recover, when the kinesio tape started to help and all that, then I did reach out to him and say, hey, I think I, can start to maybe work 1 hour a day or something, or 2 hours a day. And so I eased into it, and it took me a few months, but basically I was 6-7 months total. And 1st of July, I started my full-time job with this software company selling their software in Switzerland.
Yeah.
But the job was a little bit like, it was working from home, which was great. It sounded like a dream job. But the schools were like an hour away, so I had to drive there. And what happened when I was driving, I got this pinching neck pain again. Because when you sit in a car, it's kind of also this, whether we feel it or know it or not, it's kind of stressful on our shoulders and the whole posture. So I wasn't healed. I was just feeling better, but I wasn't healed, and these drives were bad for me. Now, I didn't tell my new employer that yet. I was kind of holding on to my job, but I noticed also it had a lot to do with sales calls, like cold calls, and I've never been used to that in my life, and I don't like it. I'd rather market myself a lot online and write blog posts than doing cold calls. And so, after 15 months, that honeymoon was over, and that's interesting. I got married 2012, and the week before my honeymoon, I lost my job again.
Due to ill health. So what did you, because obviously you've gone on to start your own really, really successful business. So, how did that come about? Obviously, and one of the questions is obviously how has that adversity led you onto that? But I guess if you kept being fired from your job for being ill, then that kind of was probably the thing that took you on that path.
Yeah, so for me, that seed of working from home was helpful in the second job. So I'm really grateful for that part. Sitting at home, I bought, height adjustable desk. I bought a proper office chair, all of my own cost. But I just wanted to kind of have a proper home office. Yeah. And so I loved working from home, even if I'm a very social person. I'm actually an extrovert, so I need people to get energy. I loved working from home. It gave me the flexibility to do my daily walks, which was still what I needed to do for my health. And so I think that was another part of just more seeds being planted. And then losing my job twice in a matter of 2 years, I was like, if I don't take this as a sign, I don't know what kind of sign I need to get to kind of get my act together. I was still thinking like, what is it? I thought I would get this brilliant business idea in the shower or during one of my daily walks, but that's not how it works. You just have to start to take action. So I basically, took my pride. I felt a little embarrassed applying for unemployment benefits, but I did it because I realized it's going to be very hard to find a job and I don't really want a job. So I went to the unemployment office, and pretty much in the second meeting I had with them, like after 2 months of benefits, I told them, basically, I want to start a business. I just, I have some ideas. And they said, well, I think it's going to be very hard for you to find a job, so we'll support it.
Oh, brilliant.
And that meant that I didn't have to look for a job. And they put me into a startup course, which first I was like, I don't need a startup course. I've been a CEO already. But the great thing was it was a special Swiss startups course. So I learned a lot about the rules and regulations, the laws in Switzerland about startups. So that was very helpful. And then I had for a few months benefits without having to look for a job. And then there was a cutoff, like, now we don't support you anymore. Now you need to be of your own. And that was kind of, and I did found a limited liability company because I knew that was, I decided to be serious from day one.
Yeah.
And my first customer, you cannot believe this, was my previous employer, the one that had the software company. He has numerous companies, and he was importing fish to Switzerland, and he wanted some consultancy.
Oh, wow.
And that was like typical business consultancy. And I realized the project was fine for me because I was like, okay, I can prove my worth here and I can start to have some revenue for my business. But I was like, ooh, I don't want to be the traditional business consultant, like management consultant, and create PowerPoint slides and here's how you're going to do it. And then you don't know if they actually execute or what they do with your project. So that felt very unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And I was in a limbo for a few months, I would say. I didn't really know. And this was, if you've read the book Alchemist, where the boy is kind of looking for the treasure around the world. And
No, I haven't read it. I have been recommended it though, but carry on.
Yeah. So the quick story is that he looks for a treasure all over the place, only to come back to his home and finding it in the backyard.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of this thing about we're often looking for things much further away, or we're looking for something so exciting and so unique and so interesting, and not realizing it's right in front of you. So I had been running businesses for 10 years, running other people's business for 10 years, successfully. I've done turnarounds, mergers, fast growth, startups. I had an MBA from London Business School, and I was looking for a business idea that, I don't know, online shopping, write travel books, do photography. I was anything else. And after going in circles, I finally realized it took me another 6 months. So in January 2014, finally, I was like, hello, it's right in front of me. And I think it came from being in Facebook groups and seeing the questions being asked and realizing I am the one to answer these questions.
Oh, wow.
I know the answer. Yeah. So the business idea came from just hanging around people that are also on their entrepreneurial journey, but they had all kinds of questions on how to start a company or how to set prices or even just how to do Facebook ads or how to do mail. Like I'm tech savvy too. I also have a master's degree in computer science. I worked in IT companies. I find it quite easy to, most of the time I don't even take a course. I just start to use the software and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But of course I didn't want to be known for that because my gift is the strategy, figuring out also what's stopping people or what is actually kind of, when you think of turnarounds, what's wrong with a business? I love figuring that out. And then how can you take something and grow it super fast? And that's what I've done. I went from 0 to 1 million revenue per year in 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And so this is kind of like where you are now, isn't it? In what you do, because I know that you've got like a 12-month program, Sigrun's online MBA, where you help women to start, build and scale their business to six figures. So can you talk us a little bit more about that program and how you can help women to do that?
So based on my own experience, I realized there's a lot of women who would like to start a business, but they can't find their business idea. Yeah. So that was the first course I created. I created a course on how to find a business idea. And I was basically helping myself. The second thing I realized that there are lots of business courses out there. They are typically 6, 8 or 12 weeks, and it takes a lot longer to build a business. And people, especially women, I feel we need more support. This has something got to do with our self-confidence. And I can say this, even after being CEO for so many years, even just setting my first prices, I remember I was kind of wanting to offer 1-hour business coaching. And I said, oh, well, maybe I should charge $180. And then my husband, well, didn't you study at London Business School? And I'm like, yes. And what are your colleagues charging working for, consultancy companies? I'm saying probably $1,000 an hour. I said, yeah, can't you charge that? I'm like, no, they cannot afford it. The funny thing is, my hourly rate today is $1,000 and female entrepreneurs can afford it. It's more about you. So in this Zumba program, they call themselves Zumbas. I go through the whole process. It's a lot about mindset, strategy, also the tech, how to set everything up. So it's a complete program over a year, and people can then also continue after a year if they want to, where I have a weekly office hour where I help every single week. And once a month, we have calls where people are on a hot seat, so we can dive a little bit deeper into their business. And then basically I have content on practically everything in online business. I was just creating a new course recently, Facebook ads. I swore to myself, I created one in 2015. I swore to myself I was not going to create a Facebook ad course again because I want to keep my content classic, like on a strategy mindset level, which will never change. As soon as you start to create more tech tutorials, they outdate. As soon as you've done the last video, they're outdated almost. And I swore to myself I wouldn't do it. But the thing is, Facebook ads is just a huge component in online business. So instead of people having to invest into other courses, I create all these courses and have them inside the program as accessible.
It's amazing because, there's so many things to know when you're starting, an online business. And, I started in business sort of 18 years ago, but it started as like a small offline business, which kind of evolved into an online business where I started creating online courses actually in the creative sector, helping women to start their own creative home business. And from that, I developed like a membership site. And basically I got ill about 3 years ago. I suffered a brain hemorrhage, and my original business, the Craft Academy, basically survived 3 years of not being able to work because of the recurring revenue from the online courses and the membership site. And that's really where my whole vision for Victress Entrepreneurs and the Victress FM podcast comes from, because creating an online business which generates recurring revenue gives you that freedom and flexibility, and also the financial security that I think a lot of women really crave. But it's important to build that business on the right foundations with the correct strategy, which obviously is what you're doing with your program. So is there a particular niche that you're helping here?
It's female online entrepreneurs, so service-based. So it could be a consultant, trainer, coach, not necessarily business coaches or marketing coaches. We do have those as well, but I have stylists, interior designers, dog trainers, all kinds of women who want to create an online business. Ultimately, they want to create courses and launch them. Launching is probably one of the things that I enjoy the most. That's my favorite topic, because I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about. So they might haven't had, so even if you've had an offline business successfully, launching is kind of a art and a science in itself. And that's something that people need to learn and practice. That's also why all my programs are 12 months, because launching once, then you're probably going to make a lot of mistakes. Then you launch again, you're going to refine it. And maybe when you launch the third time, then you have kind of grasped it, what it really is about.
Yeah, I love that. So obviously the adversity you went through with your poor health and unfortunately losing your jobs from that is really the thing that sort of took you onto your entrepreneurial path. What would you say, are the things that you've sort of learnt most in the time from when you started your business? What have been your sort of biggest learning lessons, if you like?
So I would say first that, I didn't feel I had a choice. There's no plan B.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I didn't start my business earlier, or the reason many women also wait and don't take action, is you're comfortable.
Yeah.
You're comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to take action because this is a risk. And women are not so eager to take risk. Men actually are much more likely to take risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's a calculated risk. And for me, I didn't feel I had an option. Losing your job twice in 2 years, that's a big sign.
Yeah.
Being sick also felt like I was worried. I was worried about taking on a job where I had to work 8-9 hours a day at a desk. Yeah. And I couldn't do my daily walk. So it was not just that I was, okay, will I be able to find a job? But what if I find a job and it's a great job and I enjoy it and maybe I'm a CEO of a great company? My health will just go bad again. And I was still on this recovery path. So there was all these things that I did not feel I had an option to go any other route. So I hope that not everyone will have to go through something like this in order to not see another option. I saw it as a positive option. It was not like, this is the only thing I can do now. No, I was like, okay, this is my option and there's no plan B. So this is going to work. That's also why I did a limited liability company from day one and not start like, okay, let's see how it works and then I'll change it later on. I think it's trying things out. When you put something out there, a lot of us will realize that when you make our first offer, nobody buys. And it's easy to kind of, okay, nobody bought. This is not for me. Online business doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I see so many give up. And I think I have this in me since a child, that perseverance, but I do think I've had to kind of, talk to myself and make sure, like, Sigrun, you don't give up. I remember when I was trying to move from one-on-one to groups and I put out an offer. I did like a 21-day challenge. We didn't call it challenges at that time. It wasn't in yet. But I did a 21-day something. And people were like, this is great. And then I put an offer for a group coaching program. And I sent out an email and made a Facebook post and nobody signed up. And I immediately caved in. And I was like, nobody wants it. So I just gave up. And 3 months later, I also tried a Facebook post, no email, no follow-up, nobody bought. 3 months later, I said, okay, I know I can sell a group coaching program. I think I had 3,000 people on my email list. So I had been really doing marketing and building up, a good reputation for helping people. And I was well booked with one-on-one, but I didn't really know how to launch, even though I had kind of launched my one-on-one previously. So yeah, I wrote 4 emails up front. I seeded in my group. I asked a lot of questions. Who is launching in the next 3 to 6 months? Who would be interested in a launch program? Like, I started to kind of realize, like, you have to get people interested. You have to build a desire before you can ask them to commit to something. And I started to really internalize this. So you can have a successful launch, especially if you have some help. But then when you really internalize how this all works and how you would potentially do this offline, it's not one post or one email. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I sold a group coaching program, 12 spots in a few days.
Wow.
And I was like, why didn't I do this 6 months ago?
Yeah.
And it was just, I retreated.
I love that, because I think, running your business anyway, I think is a learning process, a learning curve. And, we all go through evolution. And some people, like you said earlier, some people would cave and think, okay, this is not for me. But actually, it's sometimes having those failures that we need to look at them as opportunities to learn, and sometimes look at, okay, well, that didn't work that way. What is that I need to do? Is that what you found as well on your journey?
Yeah, I think it's in the beginning when I started my business and I saw these women like, oh, I have a 6-figure business. Oh, I have a 7-figure business. I did not think I would be one of those women. And it's interesting how you kind of try things out and then you see, oh, that actually works. But it only works if you try it again. Yeah. So if I do something and it doesn't work out, I'll just do it again. Now I know that. And it's interesting, when you're launching and I have a 7-day open cart, and in the middle of the launch, it's always a slow day. Now I just know it. Yeah. It's a slow day. Yeah. And I'm not nervous, I'm not stressed, and I know it will pick up, but it still gives me also fuel to kind of go the last mile in the last 3 days, because it's never over until it's over.
And, you've mentioned obviously about sort of, caving and stuff like that, but obviously mindset is so important in business, because a lot of people might give up at the first hurdle, which obviously you haven't. So how do you keep that positive mindset? Are there any sort of do you have any sort of mindset practices, or any sort of daily routines or rituals or books that you read that like keep you in that positive mindset?
I think there is this belief, it's not a ritual actually, and it's not books. There is this belief that anything is possible. And I do think it did help me when I was 11 years old. I was envisioning my life. I was thinking about this early, very serious girl. And I decided to study architecture in Germany, south of Germany. And the thing how it happened was that I looked at houses on the weekends. We used to drive around maybe on a Sunday afternoon with my parents, eat ice cream, and I would see new houses being built. And I was like, this is great. And I started to draw up houses. And then we are on holiday in south of Germany. And I thought it was beautiful there, absolutely beautiful, Freiburg, Germany. And I stand on the square in front of our hotel and I said to myself very quietly, I'm going to come back and study here, architecture. And wow. I worked on it. And 9 years later, I stood on the same square. You couldn't study architecture in that city. I didn't know that little detail. But I came to Freiburg, Germany, and I started to study German. So I had to learn German first before I went to architecture school. But I think these experiences, this is just one of many where I say, like, okay, I envisioned this. Like, I had to take a student loan. My parents did not pay for my study. I took a student loan. I had a boyfriend that I left behind in Iceland. And he then later followed me to Germany. There was all these things, obstacle put in my place. Like, okay, you could say, oh, I don't have the money. I'm like, okay, I can take a student loan. Or, oh, my boyfriend is not supportive. I was like, I said, you can come with me or you can come later. I went without him first. You can have all these excuses, but I think this picture, like, I'm going to come back to this square and study here, that was very clear to me. So I truly believe that anything is possible. Now, if I look at Oprah right now, it's not that I believe, I can become Oprah, but I believe that I can go as far as I want to go in direction of, impacting women and inspiring women to go after their dreams. The only person standing in the way is me.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And so what would you say is your ingredients for success? Because obviously what you've achieved is amazing and incredible. How quickly did you say you created your 6-figure business?
6 figures in 12 months and 7 figures in 4 years.
Wow. So what would you say are your ingredients for success that enabled you to make that happen?
From the beginning, I decided this is going to be a real business and not a hobby business. So my first goal was to replace my previous income as a CEO. So I had obviously had a 6-figure salary before. So that was my first goal. And I wanted to achieve that. Yeah, in 12 months sounded like a reasonable amount of time. Once you figure out what you're doing and how you sell it, that's going to be achievable for most people. But then I was like, okay, the idea was a location-independent business. I now live in Switzerland, but my family is in Iceland. My dream was to split my time 50-50. And how do I do that? Well, by having not a local business and also not having, my calendar fully booked with meetings. And I realized, how do you do that? Well, you have to kind of scale up. Yeah. So I really, in my first year of business, I was probably not fully booked yet with one-on-one clients, and I was starting to think scaling up. And then this episode around how to sell a group coaching program came about. And once I figured that out, I started running group coaching programs, and I've run probably over 35 programs now, group coaching programs. Some of them are called group coachings, others are called masterminds. I really became known for it. I would be running 4, 5, 6 programs at the same time, only group coaching programs. So scaling.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women just accept okay, now I'm 6 figures and I am fully booked one-on-one clients, and this is just the way it's going to be for the next years. And I was thinking, no, how can I have a bigger impact? How can I, grow my business still with the same quality, but how can I scale it in terms of revenue and impact? And I was always thinking how I can do that. So in 2017, I created that Zumba program that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
And that was when I really have a program where I can have 500 or 5,000 people in it, and it will not take more of my time to run the program.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was thinking about the impact. I truly believe that I was put in this world to have a big impact. And so that's what I need to do.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. And I think, and that's certainly what happened for me with my business. It was about scaling up, because I started off offering sort of local studio courses, which were, I got to the stage where I became the victim of my own success in that business, and I was so busy offering, like you say, one-to-one training. And you get to that kind of time for money trap where actually you can't, you've got no more of your time. And that's where I took my business online and really scaled it up. And, and then you've got the ability then to work sort of, with a limitless amount of people, wherever they may be, all over the world. And that's really the power, I think, isn't it? And I think what's amazing is I feel like you can create an online business out of almost anything, because my original online business was very, very niche, as I said, in the creative sector. And I've heard of people that have created businesses in all sorts of niches. So do you agree with that? Because I know one of the things you do is actually help your clients come up with their business idea. But do you agree with that there's so many opportunities now in all sorts of different niches?
It's almost anything. I love it that inside my community, I see stylists, copywriters, interior designers, dog trainers, jewelers. I mostly attract service-based business owners, but it's fascinating how varied it is, because it just shows that you just need to be creative. I attract a lot of artists, healers, People that have maybe done they've had to do massages or body work before, and they figure out how they can help online. And it's a different business for sure. But I love that because it means that, again, anything is possible.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we are going to have to round up now, but I have absolutely loved talking to you. I know this is going to be so inspiring for so many women, knowing what's possible and what help is out there. So if any of my listeners want to find out more about you or to connect with you, how can they do that?
So I have a podcast too called The Sigrun Show, where I cover topics on online business. And also I have the website sigrun.com. And I have a conference actually next year for female entrepreneurs in Iceland in June 2020.
Amazing. Okay, lovely. Well, I will make sure that we have all of those details in the show notes. I'll make sure we've got all of the links to those, and also over on the Victress Entrepreneurs website as well. But I want to thank you so much, Sigrun, for joining us today. I really enjoyed chatting to you and hearing about your Victress story. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sigrun, and I will connect with you again very soon. Bye-bye for now. And to you, our wonderful Victress FM listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview as much as I have. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Sigrun, please either check out the show notes or head over to victressentrepreneurs.com, where all of our podcast guests are featured on our website. Please also check out all of our amazing free resources to help you through each stage of starting, launching and growing your own successful business. And don't forget also to subscribe to Victress FM on iTunes or Stitcher to make sure that you don't miss out on another inspiring episode. But until next week, stay victorious.
You're listening to Victress FM. Victress Entrepreneurs, for women who are victorious in business and in life.